Good afternoon. We are here, and once again, it is our great pleasure to be in your reality. Today is number 4 of July, the month of July, and it is the year of 2024. So in certain historical terms, it is the 248th anniversary for the signing of the, that very bold and dynamic document called the Declaration of Independence. And so it echoes through time. It echoes, let's say that events that are pivotal and that change the course of human destiny, human history. They have an impact on your psyche, they have an impact on the land, and they have an impact across the lines of time. So happy Independence Day, even though you will be receiving this greeting a bit later. Reflect on how you spent the day called 4th of July, but it's all about independence. And what is your independence in your life? What do you value in terms of independence? How independent are you? But how respectful are you and valuing the larger society of which you are part? If you did not have society, community, and the commonality of your humankind, your independence would make you a lone pioneer out there on the trails or the prairies or out on the oceans. And bottom line is, you need one another as humankind, but you also need to have a strong sense of freedom, of liberty. And recently we talked about how all over the planet the fight for liberty is on. Liberty, the right to think, to speak, to be, to do, to carry on as as you deem proper. But you know, when the Declaration was signed in 1776, July number 4, the Founding Fathers were full of fear, uncertainty, anxiety, trepidation. We've pointed out that many of the signers, actually large majority of the 56 signers, were high-degree Masons. And the other common thread they had was they were under 40. Some of them were in their early 30s, their late 20s, and they took on the role of statesmen. They came from powerful families. Obviously, as high-degree Masons, they would have been privy to various initiations, call it a secret society, where when you pass one test, you then raise in rank and you move to another inclusivity of knowledge. And of course, this is a caste system of sorts. It is a top-down control system. Oh, this is very, 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 very ancient. It's so ancient that as humans, you have forgotten the larger umbrella of belief of cellular control, of genetic memory. You've forgotten what you are part of. And not to say that every other culture hasn't done the same. Every culture, no matter what time period, past, present, future, there's lessons to be learned. And there's an exquisite artistry, an exquisite co-creation and cooperation that allows what we call the game of existence in your sector of existence to to continue to offer you lessons and purpose, a place to be, a place to discover yourself and to find meaning in life. This is part of the journey of consciousness. We are Pleiadians from the future. Our sector of the cosmos is the Pleiades. At this time of year, being that we are in the sign of Taurus and the sun is in the sign of now Cancer, the sun is close to our location in the cosmos, so you cannot see us. We start to appear as a constellation, the constellation Taurus, in the night sky, around perhaps the early part of September. And if you are up late and you are where the nights are lit up by the spires of the Milky Way galaxy, that means there's no artificial light. But if you are privy to live in such a place, or to have the opportunity to look up and simply see the majesty of the stars, there's a lot to learn just by watching the skies. And there's even more to learn in understanding the influence of the heavens, visitors, the position of the stars, the planets, and it gives you, let's say, a new frontier to discover. A frontier that is ridiculed by many, and it's also part of a secret society. As we said, the founding fathers were Masons. They took oaths of loyalty, of secrecy. They had vision. And most of all, they were looking for freedom. Freedom from tyranny. And as the people of the USA, a country of about 40 million, lots of illegals that are here, so it's difficult to tell exactly what the number is, but a small pinprick on the larger picture of the planet. And yet your stance for Bill of Rights and liberty and freedom to express yourself and to have mostly limited government. This is what the founding fathers wanted, the limited influence of elected or unelected leaders. They had a strong belief in the power of the divine, in the power of God. They were practicing Judeo-Christian, so to speak. That was their heritage. And so there was a belief in the Bible. There was a belief in higher powers. There was a belief in cosmic law that many saw was decreed by Moses and the 10 Commandments. And so what's fascinating is that the issues that 13 states, colonies as they were, or they could be thought of as 13 countries, as they were grappling with their own values. Some of the colonists wanted to, in the early days, they had control over other humans, people of darker skin. Some of the areas were negotiating with the native people, you call Indians, that lived here, the red-skinned people. Others were doing everything to destroy them, to create slaughter, to push forward, to own land, or to make trades. It is said that the island there of Manhattan was bought for a few beads of wampum. Wampum were a form of trade, of money that the native peoples utilized to exchange good, exchange ideas, etc. So what's fascinating is that you are up against some big historical events that for a large part have been forgotten. Many people will be celebrating today with their burgers and franks, and perhaps if you are in Maine, you'll be roasting lobsters and having clam bakes, or perhaps if you are in the deep south, it's barbecue, and Midwest, it might be spare ribs, and out in California, well, who knows what they are doing there. United States as a leader on Earth for liberty and freedom. There's no place that is comparable to the ideas that people embraced many centuries ago and took a stand for what they thought was important. So today you are up against not only taking a stand for your personal liberties, your declaration, your constitution in the United States, but this is affecting the entire world. Notice there's no country in the world that people want to zoom into and be a part of as much as they do the USA. And still, you can make something of yourself, even if you come from not much. So the issues are not just about freedom and independence and liberty in terms of government and constitutional declarations and all manner of such. There are larger issues at play. And this we've been discussing for a long time, and these issues are going to bubble and boil and come to a head. Now today we have a guest with us. It is our IT man and good character, Mr. Khan. Welcome, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
And we are going to discuss the subject of today is going to be the hidden empire. Is that correct, Mr. Khan?
That's correct.
Part 2, yes?
Yes.
And part 1 was delivered about 3 months ago, at the end of March. And so now it is July number 4. And again, the sun is in Cancer. The moon right now is at the very end of Gemini. Always a good place to have us come in on. Our vehicle has a stellium in Gemini in her astrological configuration, and Gemini is about thinking and ideas and mind and all of that. And then shortly, a little while, the moon will move to Cancer. And of course the sun and the moon are now would be in Cancer, and tomorrow, July number 5, all over the world will be a new moon. And that means the sun and the moon are in the same sign. It's called conjunct. The sun is about 13 degrees today, so by tomorrow at the new moon, the moon and the sun will be at the exact same degree of Cancer, and it will be another new beginning, and we'll have more to say on that date tomorrow for, continuing insight into the excitement of these times, the crossroads that you are finding yourself at, the planet chock full of people, even though there's huge infertility issues, and the wealthier nations are all not replacing themselves, and so there's a changing of the guard, so to speak. But we've been warning you about this. This is history. Nothing stays the same for too long. Although when you look back and you study history, you can say, well, look at the ancient city-states, the first colonization on the planet there, and then after the flood, the city-states, the God-ruled area of the Middle East, and it's you see that many things come and go. We'll have more to talk about that later. But right now, with Mr. Khan here, we're going to spend the next bit of time entertaining you, provoking deep thinking. So it's a good idea now, before we start this ping-pong energy of ideas, that you separate your jaw, you relax your tongue, and you can go about your driving, your activities, whatever you need to do. But we want you to be in a little bit of a creative state of memory, of opening up your body in such a way that as we discuss some profound ideas, the hidden empire, of course, is all about the reptilian influence on your planet that has done everything in its power to hide behind every rock, every tree, every cloud, every activity. They are disguising themselves. They hide from your awareness. On another level, they flaunt themselves. And the history of the planet is full of all manner of serpents and reptiles and dragons, and there's not a culture that you can enter that does not have some reference to an ancient serpent influence on the planet. And we have much more to say about it, and we've talked about different authors that are out there, but there are many who have dared to tread into the area of a reptilian god, a reptilian overlord, a reptilian controllers behind the scenes. Mr. Khan's been doing his homework. He's been thinking and doing a bit of research. So let's turn it over to you, Mr. Khan. And just before the new moon, it is called balsamic phase, the dark side of the moon. The dark side of the moon is a good time for investigation. The dark side of the moon has been explored, and you have satellites and you have secret missions, and well, it's well known that there's a reason that the moon does not rotate. Then you would see what was on the dark side. And those who move the moon into position and utilize it for their own capabilities, the Anunnaki, they have many, many structures on the light side, but also on the dark side. So this is a symbolic time to see if you can see through the dark to what is there, what is in your own DNA, your cellular memory, and what's ready to be brought forward in terms of conscious awareness. So, as we like to say to the pigeons, take it away, guys. But to you, Mr. Khan, we will say, take it away, Mr. Khan.
Yes, Peace. Peace, there are many myths and many ancient stories that speak of the Anunnaki ruling human beings out in the open. I was curious, why did they choose to retreat and rule from the shadows?
Well, yes, even different areas of the planet have written memory of dealing with them. We talked about the area that is called Ceylon. Today it is called
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka, yes, thank you. Old Ceylon, now it is Sri Lanka. And how the Chinese traders would come, or the Indian traders would come, and they knew that the reptiles were there, but they, at that point, they became hesitant in showing themselves to the humans for many reasons. There were extreme cultural differences in just the way the humans carried themselves about life versus the reptiles. The humans considered the reptiles to be an abomination. They considered them to be repulsive, unpleasant to look upon. There's also this cultural memory from before the flood, of genetic memory of the humans and of what occurred between humankind and the reptiles before the flood. And in your biblical stories, the story of Noah, which we have spoken of many times, the way the Bible or your books portray it, and remember all these books in the Bible were voted on in the Council of Nicaea. Yes, we'll include this. No, we won't include that. So that is a given. Many books were rejected for whatever was going on in 325 AD. Just like today, think of how many lies are told every day. Think of how many truths in modern time, in one day, in a 24-hour cycle, how many lies are perpetrated, and then the liars are calling the other people liars, and then the other people are saying, well, this is the truth. And so this has happened throughout history. Today it's constant, which is wearing down everyone's mental capability. Before, it was councils would meet, the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. They spent a long time debating. It wasn't just months, it was years. They were debating, and then they had to spend many years away from home, and then they would travel home, and years later the decrees would move out slowly. But the point you are making is that why did they decide to become hidden? Largely because prior to the flood, it was well known everywhere, and even after the flood, that humans were a food source for the reptilian culture. This is part of your history. Giants are also a part of your history. Giants are creatures of the reptiles. They're part of their genetic experimentation, and they were considered to be sort of a slave species that would do big work, big work. And some of it was underground, some of it was above ground. The reptiles were again small in number, and this led to all manner of innovation and invention on their part, from genetic engineering through to artificial intelligence, which we are dealing with today. So there became a time when human began to replicate, and they proliferated on the land, and they were a food source for a long time for the reptiles. And this remained strong in the memory of the humans. Prior to the flood, there was a command, a demanded sacrifice. And again, even after the flood of 13,000 years ago, where your Bible says no one survived, just Noah and his children on the ark, and no one else was left. This is not true at all. The waters rose. It wasn't just the Persian Gulf and the Middle East and all of that area that was in jeopardy. It was all over the planet. And when these times of tumult began to arise, many people went beneath the surface. Of course, not all survived. But what was remembered was this fear of being eaten by the reptiles, of being an offering, of being a sacrifice. And so after the flood, even though the reptiles came and re-landed, and offerings were made, and they forgave humankind for being a big problem, or at least that's the story. The Lord of the air, he was advised to just tolerate the humans. They are needed as workers. Enki, of course, the other brother, was deemed to be the savior, to warn them about the flood. But there was fear after that. And, the practices still persisted. Different groups were forced or coerced or conditioned to carry on human sacrifice. Particularly, the firstborn was deemed to be a gift to the gods. So, today, there are many people in the world of high rank who are fully aware of the presence of a reptilian extraterrestrial behind the scene. Think of all the movies that have come out. And of course, there's been conditioning in the movies. If you look at the E.T. movie, little E.T., early 1980s or some such, E.T. phone home. And E.T., it was said that they worked a long time on the character, making sure it was reptilian, but an innocent, sweet, non-cannibalistic type of reptile. And behind the scenes, there's been many others, space stories, all kinds of things introducing into the subconscious of humankind a memory, a long-held collective memory, where on one hand these reptilians are saviors. They are thought to be the developers and the founders of civilization, the teachers, the godlike beings who brought all manner of opportunity to the human species. On another level, these reptiles were demanding, and you were their food source. And so, and again, you were the food source again for the giants. At one time, the giants turned cannibalistic, and they started eating humankind. So there is a need by the reptiles to stay behind the scenes. Again, their numbers could not match your numbers. Your thinking, your mind power is massive, but you've lost faith in it and lost confidence in it. And this is part of the reptilian psychological warfare, one would say, by some of them, to use fear, intimidation, and this old memory that haunts many, many people of being a human sacrifice, yet it's nowhere near come to the surface. And again, this is the power of memory. You can store memory in your own being from millions of years ago if you are part of a species that has never lost its continuity. So, long answer there, but giving people a little bit of a historical perspective on why it is necessary, and not only it is the cannibalistic, we are food, but many who have met these reptiles, they feel overwhelmed, intimidated, because the reptiles have a thought form about them, some of them, that it is so powerful that it is like meeting a force of steel, because you are encountering consciousness that is completely different than human consciousness. And to add more, the reptiles are varied in their capabilities, in their background, in their history. Granted, their numbers are nowhere near as great as you are humankind. 7, some people say closer to 8 billion now on the planet. But they have a lineage and a background that's old and stubborn and strong. It's frightening to most humans to encounter intelligence in a species that you would call animalistic. What else, Mr. Khan?
You spoke of their intelligence. I wanted to know the average human IQ is somewhere in the high 90s. What would it be for a typical Anunnaki?
Oh, you are talking about the pantheon of the gods and their family?
Yes.
Not all their underlings. Even the people they brought with them, the Igigi, so to speak, people, the creatures, whatever you want to call them, they are all special. Their expeditions to Earth were exceptional within the Anunnaki ranks. And yet, how do we describe this? So the Anunnaki rulers of Nibiru and their overthrowing of the previous leader, who was Alalu, who was quite entrenched, and Alalu was involved in many wars and much karma, let's say, with Earth that happened many hundreds of thousands of years prior to Alalu returning to Earth and finding gold. Alalu didn't just come to Earth and say, oh, I found a planet, here's gold. Alalu came back to Earth after he was deposed from the Nibiruan rulership. But Alalu had been a big, big ruler of the Anunnaki Empire for a long, long, long time. So, the IQ, what would it be? If someone on planet Earth has an IQ of 150 or 160, they would consider to be pretty smart, yes?
Yes.
It was said that one of your presidents had an IQ of 160 or 165 or some such. And so what does that say to you?
Would that be relatively high?
What?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So you might think this is a smart person, yes?
Yes. I believe that might be considered a genius.
All right, good, good. So, but do you want us to tell you who the person is?
Is it Trump?
No, it's Bill Clinton.
That doesn't surprise me.
All right. So what this shows you is that you can be of the most despicable, shoddy, stupid character and still have a high IQ. That's the point. So IQ means you can pass tests, you have logical thinking, you can problem solve, but it is not a reflection of character. And so this is what's happened with the Anunnaki, is that because they are long livers, reptilian by nature, and the higher end of this branch of Anus have figured out how to live a long time. It's been an obsession of theirs. So in living long, we've said they have no emotionality, and therefore very little emotional intelligence to reflect on what they're doing. They are warlike people, but very, very, very innovative in problem solving, in coming up with creative solutions with no moral responsibility, with no morality and smarts. And if you are president or you are emperor or whatever, you can proceed to do very stupid things. But you are a leader, you have authority. Someone put you there, or you had the smarts enough to get there. So this is what the Anunnaki have been up against. The top ranks, even though they fight amongst themselves, they find solutions that can overcome their adversaries so they can stay in power. And they've been playing this game for far, far, far too long. Hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps even millions of years. It's this old game. Anu is the last participant of it, and his lineage is, they've created all kinds of problems. And even after the great deluge of 13,000 years ago, Anu at that point did retreat, and all the children of Enlil and Enki and grandchildren and all of that, they became the rulers of Earth. They fought like crazy. It was very different after the flood. The spoils, the resources were fought over, and the innovation to solve problems dissipated, and of course the ability to carry out extreme genetic engineering was destroyed with the flood. The flood was not the first catastrophe that the Anunnaki encountered. Being here for 500,000 years, there were a number of times when weather events, solar events, threw them off course. Their laboratories, for the large part, were located underground. The temples, the stone structures that were built on Earth and on Mars, the structures are built above the ground. And they are for those who would awe and wow and whatever. But they are all markers for something big lies beneath here. And here, in this vicinity, is an opening to the underworld. So you are dealing with very, very crafty beings at the top who do not like a middle class. They do not like a middle class Anunnaki, because they see that you give the middle class Anunnaki some smarts and they will overthrow the upper class. So they became, sort of by their own greed, a culture that wanted tip-top, tip-top, and then just workers at the bottom. Same issue that the global elites want to foist on you today. Super wealthy, eliminate what's in the middle, and only keep the low-end workers and a lot of machines. What else, Mr. Khan?
You have mentioned the clones and the reptile's ability to shapeshift. Each person that might have a clone, or that might be taken by a shapeshifter, has a lifetime of memories and emotions and relationships. How is it that these are able to be transferred to something like a clone?
Well, it is a good question. It's sort of a developing technology, components that they utilize to stay hidden, but to observe you and to understand you. They very much need to hack into your lives, spy into your lives, and to extract memories, extract photographs, documentation, data, stealing data mining, using your personal data. This is not just for the government. This is a massive reptilian experiment in attempting to figure out the human psyche, the human mind, the human biology. Remember, way back, you are a product of genetic engineering between a hominid, a human creature, and reptilian genes. And the story from way back goes that the first creations were clones. And they didn't need the clones to be highly functional, but just to create a job. So they certainly didn't want Anunnaki memory or human memory to be fully functional and fully forward, so to speak. And this again over time resulted in a diminished use of the 2 strands of DNA and a diminished use of the cranial capacity. It is like having a supercomputer, but only being able to send and receive 2 emails a day or something absurd. In other words, tremendous capability, but inability to access it or even to know how to use it. So the human capabilities were purposely diminished. Now today, when they make a clone of someone, and all the world leaders have backups. There's been all kinds of reports about how many versions of this or that, and back in the old days of the 50s, 60s, 70s, people had doubles, and way back in other centuries, scouts of the king would search the kingdom for a look-alike for the king or the queen, and they would bring someone in, and the person would be a stand-in, and from far away they'd put the crown and the cape on and wave, and it's a long practice of not wearing out royalty, but tricking the masses and getting a big laugh, so to speak, about how easily it is to confound people and to trick them. So today, part of they don't want to extricate someone's full memory capacity and put it into a clone. The clones don't last that long. They are purposely designed to have a shorter life. So today's clones are not necessarily designed to be a long-term replica. They don't want to be threatened by a war of clones. What if a clone started overthrowing those who was controlling it because the clone had full access to the former owner's consciousness and psyche? So clones today are often they are task specific. So you might have a clone that's good in diplomacy. You might have a clone that's good at golf if you need a golfer. You might have a clone that's got a good memory for this and that, or a speech maker. So there is a fine art to this cloning, and we will say that part of the controversy and the big fight over the area you call Ukraine is it's a clone manufacturing center. Yes, it's one of many around the world, but that is a very valuable area as to what is going on beneath the surface. The genetic engineering, the biological parts, the trafficking of people, and the raw material that is needed to make a biological substitute. It's very different with RD Intel. RD Intel is a machine, at least as we refer to it. Sometimes it looks like a machine. You've seen robotic creatures, they're not hiding it, or they have robotic dogs now that police forces are using, or wealthy people. Your literature from Sumer is all about different characters of long ago meeting mechanical bulls and mechanical creatures, and let's say all kinds of things that were described in terms of animals, 7-headed beasts, for example. These are all references to something that is likely a mechanical production, or it could have been a biological production from the genetic engineering of what you call Atlantis. After humans were brought into being. And the Anunnaki overcame their hesitation about what would the Creator say if the Creator knew we were making life. And their rationale was the Creator would say, well, good for you, go out and create. And then it became an incredible bacchanal of creatures. And there's some remnants left in the conscious mind. And what the Anunnaki would do is they would create monsters. Reptilian monsters, snake monsters. They would use their own visage, which again many considered to be an abomination. Abomination being the word for repulsive. And so they would make Godzillas, for example, or they would make a seven-headed beast, and they would design these creatures and put them in places where they did not want humans to go. You have stories of valiant warriors who went out on journeys, and they encountered all kinds of things, and whether it was Gilgamesh or whether it was some of the Greek stories, basically what these journeyers were doing is they were going and trespassing into holy land areas, areas where the gods communicated with the humans, or missile base rocketry areas. And the Anunnaki would use monsters, creatures, scary stuff, that if one human saw this creature, they would be frightened, they would warn everyone else, and that dragon, that monster, would effectively serve in collective memory to keep the humans away from any of the areas that were considered to be only for the gods. So the clones were purposely downshifted not to have too much of the consciousness of a human.
Well, I still have the question of the reptiles who in rare cases actually take on the form of a human.
Yes, we've discussed this with you. It's not easy for them to do. It's not a common ability among all of the reptiles to be able to naturally shift into human form. And we have also mentioned it can be difficult to maintain the human form. When they are shifting from reptile to human, it is harder to hold the human visage. It is easier for them to be reptile. And there's something to think about. If you look at many of the ancient buildings that the reptiles had constructed above ground, you'll notice that they don't have a lot of windows. They have hardly any windows at all. Sometimes the oldest structures just have small clerestory windows at the top of a temple, at the top of a building. And whether you are looking in Mesoamerica, you're looking in the Middle East, there's a large collection of structures where no light goes in. It's been reported that to live on the surface and to deal with the cycles of light and darkness that the humans became adapted to, the reptiles that never adapted to them. That is why there are stories of Enki going into his Abzu. And there's been different speculation about what is his Abzu. It's not that different than Onus. Onus was considered to be a Sumerian god, we believe, who showed up during the daylight hours and then retreated into his water world, a submersible craft, so to speak, in the Persian Gulf. So different atmospheres create different forms of consciousness. But in general, the Anunnaki as reptiles had to stay hidden because very few of them had the ability to move into human form. And if they turned into reptiles, the humans were often repulsed, not just by their looks, but again, that collective memory, is this creature going to eat me? Yes?
Yes.
It'd be quite frightening.
Are they not repulsed by us?
No, they consider you to be more of a boondoggle, and they find you to be sort of weak with your pale skin. Even if you have darker skin, they consider you to be soft and weak. Sort of good to eat from their point of view, you know. How many of you are excited about eating a reptile? Not too many. You understand?
Yes.
So you are considered to be meaty and juicy but weak, which is what they find frustrating about humankind, is your emotional capabilities. Now we've often suggested that there's two things about being human that get you in big trouble. Your sexuality and your inability to control it, and you can really, really, really open up all manner of troublesome portals, whether with sexuality, whether you're talking about entity possession, other beings occupying you for sex, including the reptiles. The reptiles like to have sex with humans. They like to take on the human form. You remember that TV series and the movie V, The Visitors? They were portraying this ability to have human form and then to have sex with a human, and then the human has a reptilian baby. So, but your sexuality, whether reptiles are involved or not, can make you or break you. It can bring you glory, it can bring you love, it can bring you disease and entity possession and all manner of a damaged life. In many regards, this is where the old laws of marriage came in. They came in not because someone said, hey, it's a good idea to stay married, morally correct. It was a way of keeping people healthy, wholesome, grounded and connected, and of course, reproducing more of the food source, reproducing more workers. So the other thing that gets you in big trouble is the thing that the Anunnaki do not understand about you, because they do not have it, is your emotionality. Your emotionality connects you to right and wrong, to joy or remorse. It is a built-in feedback system that without emotionality, you wouldn't have the ability to reflect on what your actions were. You would just go out and create and destroy or be hedonistic. And so the reptiles over time, it was outbred in them. It's not that it was never there, but over millions and millions of years, if you wanted to live a long time, to be highly emotional is not a very successful path. Think about the people that you know on Earth, friends. Those who are super, super emotional. It's also called loss of water in the chart. Water, the water element, it would be the Pisces, the Scorpio, the Cancers. These are the emotional signs. They connect you to your feeling center. Your feelings give you your beliefs. It's a feedback center that says, this might have not been in my best interest to do this now upon later reflection. Or you might get a gratification of, wow, I took this chance and look how it turned out, and now I am a hero for my friends or family, and I feel the joy of taking the risk and making a good decision. So your emotionality and your sexuality are two of the areas that, let's say, when you combine your emotionality with your sexuality, it's what makes you human. when you have no emotionality and you are just a sexual machine and you just want to have sex for sex for sex for sex with whomever, whether it is beast or creature or children or whatever you are choosing. Yes, you have the free will to express yourself, but remember there's always consequences. Reality is a feedback system. So this is a little more background in the joys of being human, why the reptiles find you to be threatening, because the very thing that can really ruin your life, your emotions, is the very thing that boggles them, and is the very thing that makes you smarter than them, because you have emotional intelligence. But today, in the divided world, your emotions are being completely and totally manipulated. So is everything about your biology. These times can bring out the best in all of you. If you can combine spiritual, physical, mental, emotional intelligence and rise to a position of value in the cosmos. But again, you are purposely being divided, separated, and distracted by way of machines from really reaching a pinnacle of human awareness. It's not to say it will not occur, but these are some of the challenges of these times. What else, Mr. Khan?
Peace. About 1 week ago, there was a debate that was held between the current president and a prospective president.
So the two presumptive nominees,
Yes.
from the various parties, political parties, only two, Republican and Democrats, the others don't count. So there was the debate.
There was a debate, and this debate is being considered disastrous for one of these candidates because he appears to have serious mental decline.
Well, really, the candidate that you are referring to, Nacho,
Yes.
obviously, whether it is an actor or whether it is really not, or whether it is a cyborg or whatever, it's very obvious that this man is portraying extreme mental cognitive failure and decline.
But it was obvious for a very long time.
Yes. It's
And-
been obvious for many years. Yet everyone says the emperor has beautiful clothes on while he's naked.
And now many people are in shock. There's still many people that are in denial.
Learn from this. Learn from this. Learn something about yourself and each of you who is listening. If you saw this coming, that the Bubble Bunny Biden has been in extreme decline and in diminished mental capacity for years now, then you are using your eyes to see what's there. Others see, but they are told something else and they believe it. And they don't believe their own eyes. They don't have lost the ability to think for themselves and to use their emotional intelligence. Because here's what emotional intelligence will do. You're told to think a certain way, but your eyes see something different. It creates an inner conflict. And the inner conflict is the feeling center that says, something's not right. I see this, but I'm being told this. That's a thinking person. The non-thinking person, or the person under mind control, would view a situation, and however authority described the situation, that is what the person under mind control would parrot. For example, in 2020, the country was being torn apart over protests, and you had all kinds of groups out there creating fires and destroying this and destroying that. But how many people still refer to those protests as mostly peaceful protests? Even though on the TV screens there was looting and car bombing and fires, and it's a classic example of how easy it is to put someone under mind control because they are afraid of questioning authority, and they will suppress their own logical feeling that wants to come up and say, wait a minute, there's a conflict here. Something's not right. Because you are not just thinkers, you are thinker-feelers.
You have recently stated that the human consciousness is highly programmable and easily mind controlled. And that's what I was referring to.
And the Anunnaki have known this from time out of mind. They're not a constant presence on your planet. Oh, they have their archons and dimensional police force and all of that. But they are busy other places, and they don't always have the ability to watchdog over you. That's why they will use advanced technology and religious insertions and holograms and God beings coming down now and again, and they create puzzlement, and they like to befuddle you emotionally so that you would worship. That's what they want you to do, whether they have you worshiping a goddess figure, whether they have you worshiping a war hero, a giant, a slayer of giants, a god. That's what they want. If they can get you to worship, it means that you will obey a force that appears to be greater than you yourselves are. And this is how they rule, the hidden empire. They rule by stealth. They rule by psychological manipulation and psychological warfare. And again, they have created this dynamic on the planet where the Eastern Hemisphere sees the reptilian creature as the savior. Now, it could be that they've got a lot of repressed memories there. The Western world views the serpent and the reptile as the devil, as Lucifer, as Satan, as the troublemaker, as the evil one. And it's not that the gods want you to believe one thing or another. They rule you by reversals and confounding you. And one of their other great techniques to rule you is to erase their footprints or to destroy artifacts or part of their own history, and so that you don't have the ability to piece things together. And even though they've given you technology, they've given you this technology for their own reasons. Part of the downside of this technology is that many people are putting the story together of the visitors, of the hidden empire, the reptiles, all of this, and all their good memory and the glory might go out the window when you start meeting a force that appears to have such superior strength and technology. Visitors that came from heaven and came to earth, and even though they're reptilian in nature, they were called sometimes the feathered serpent, the flying dragon, the feathered. If you look in the Native American culture, they revere the eagle. In the south part of the world, it was the condor. And but the ability to fly, and when chieftains would wear feathers, particularly a big headdress filled with eagle feathers. This was considered to be a gift of the gods. And even when your astronauts landed on the moon, if they even did so, but what they said was, the eagle has landed.
Oh yes, of course.
And the eagle was always Enlil, commander of air, commander of space. That was his animal sigil. The eagle has landed. And so rather than saying the feathered serpent has landed, the reptiles, it's become the eagle. So it's fascinating how the reptiles moved further and further away from your consciousness, even though their rituals, or to say, still remained present in certain religious practices. Remember, the character Jesus was turned into a savior, holy figure. Some speculate it was really Marduk rising from the dead and having these abilities, but the Catholic Church, after the religion was fought over and developed over hundreds of years, and it emerged from the Dark Ages there with rituals of the Holy Eucharist, the body of Christ, and then the wine, the blood of Christ. And even today people take great pleasure and solace from taking Holy Communion. Holy Communion. And the priest says, yeah, eat my body, drink my blood. These are, unfortunate to say, ancient residual memory of cannibalistic rituals that the ancient reptiles demanded from long ago. We've also suggested that when you look at your words and you look for the Anunnaki and how often you see Anu and in medical technology and herbal technology, in all the ancient words, Anu, An, An, these are all very, we hear the beeper, thank you. Ancient, important enunciations. One of the most common phrases that you have in the English language is on. Turn the light on. Yes. So, what else, Mr. Khan?
Is the human tendency to follow authority figures and for the consciousness to be so easily controlled. Does this have anything to do with any of the genetic tampering that was done to the original humans?
Yes, of course. Of course. You know, they say that Earth is goes back 5 billion years or some such, or the cosmos is 5 billion years. Whatever, it's all relative to what you believe at the time. But Earth has a long history, and it takes 1,000 millions to make a billion. When we say the Anunnaki were here 500,000 years ago, and this is when the current batch started their problems, there were batches before that. There's all manner of remnants of technological advancement, advanced civilization on Earth, with remnants found in undisturbed rock strata going back billions of years. So intelligence is ancient, and we've long been a proponent that you are descendant of a type of human biology that originally had 12 strands of DNA. And some of these beings were from long ago. And do understand, we say long, long ago, we are talking millions of years. And do understand that the Anunnaki, they're big on capturing people and moving them to different places in the cosmos. Just like in the 70s and 80s, you had all manner of farmers up in arms about finding dead cattle with body parts removed, with no blood left, and sometimes the cattle just disappeared. They were taken to other places. Along with that, you've had a long history, going back hundreds and hundreds of years, of people disappearing. They are 1 minute, gone the next. And even in modern times, in the last few decades, tremendous number of young men just disappeared and found, sometimes years later, months later, sometimes children found. They were there 1 minute, gone the next, and they're found a week later with their clothes on backward and crying someplace in the remote wilderness, impossible for them to get to. So the visitors tend to be unscrupulous in how they deal with the life forces on Earth, whether they are practicing genetic engineering, whether they are abducting, whether they are kidnapping. And once again, there are tremendous honeycombs of very, very ancient developed areas all over the Earth. And when the Anunnaki return, oh yes, there's earthquakes and rock tumbles, and some areas are just inaccessible. But other areas have been restored, refurbished. This was well understood back in the 60s and 70s, when there were underground clashes between special forces and extraterrestrial workers, drones, extraterrestrial creatures. A lot of those creatures that you see, that you believe are biological beings, they are part robotic and part genetically engineered. They are a worker race. They are not, people say they are a future version of humans coming from the future back to the past. Now, these are Anunnaki constructs that they can control. And they are using human parts today, your biology, to, as they did long ago, create their own life forms, their own, quote, abominations. That was a word that Mr. Edgar Casey used to describe what was being made during the Atlantean era, that the Atlanteans were making abominations. Fascinating. So we are in the home stretch here, winding things up since the beeper beeped. What questions do you have at the end of this discussion of the hidden empire?
Which other, or are there other ETs that the Anunnaki are using to control our civilization? For instance, are there other ET groups that are involved in managing the Earth?
Well, yes, they can go into an area and use all manner of mind manipulation. But as we've been mentioning for a while, it appears that the Anunnaki are losing power, that they are faltering in their ability to use greed and terror and tyranny to control their empire. And you are seeing this out-picturing of this falling apart and the conflict, the uprising of people on your earth, as we've said, and then the controllers wanting to say, all right, there's a new pandemic, or you can't travel here, or we're going to take away your ability to heat your homes, or we're going to destroy the food supply and create famine and drought and all of this. And so their extreme measures to fanatically control are breaking down. This is what you saw as you discussed in the debates and the scrambling of stories that are just confounding because they're full of falsehood and lies. And we are not taking sides in the debate and saying, oh, Trump is a superior person to Biden, who's a disreputable character to the extreme. Trump has his own shadow side, and as we've mentioned many times, he's not necessarily doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Deals have been made behind the scenes, and it's like, well, here, trumpet. If you don't help us with this, then guess what? And this is the position that Nacho's in. It's like, Nacho, you have to do this or else. So both sides are being squeezed. One side wants to rule the world and to create all manner of destruction, while that side accuses the other side of being a dictator, a Nazi, and it's a lot of name-calling, a lot of, you're looking at reptilian dramas. Think about the reptiles tearing each other down. And is one side going to be more successful than the other? No, there's no winners when you are talking about deceit and lies and cheating and deceit and lies and cheating and sexual perversions, and you get the picture. But it's an interesting drama to watch. And what you are watching is the Anunnaki falling apart in front of your eyes, embodying some of the characters that are playing out their parts. So what's the solution? Well, stand your ground, be true to your goodness, hang in there. Look at the bigger picture. Banish your fears. There's no reason to live in fear of any of the things that are unfolding. Use your mind, your thinking to shift the probes. Remember, the one thing that the reptiles are totally intimidated by is humankind having the courage to really see the truth, to name it, and to have emotional intelligence behind it all. But when you are a clear thinker, you send out a signal. Others read that signal. Power of your thoughts is immense. Never, ever underestimate it. Anything else, Mr. Khan?
GMOs that are ubiquitous in our food supply.
But there's going to be a heavy price to pay for it because...
Are we being genetically modified as well by these?
Yes, this is all part of a big plan. You are going to reach a point of great sickness on the planet, bigger than you can imagine. And all the pharmaceuticals and all the surgeries are not going to save people because you don't have the skills behind it anymore. You don't have really looking at things really unraveling. That's the best way to say it. But yet you can do fine in this unraveling as long as you are a good thinker and you are grounded and you understand the game and you are prepared for the long haul. Mr. Khan, it's always a pleasure. We know we are going to have a chance to do some more work with you over the next few days, Independence holiday and all that. So, dear friends, give these ideas some thought. Use the power of your mind to steer reality in your direction. Create the best pleasant journeys. Good evening.
Good evening.